You ever met someone who asks you for something that just feels off, like your peace, your loyalty, your time, but you can tell it's not coming from a good place? It's subtle, but it's dangerous. Today, I'm giving you the 5 exact things toxic people will ask for that should immediately raise a red flag. If you've ever been drained, manipulated, or confused in a relationship, friendship, work, or love, this might explain why. Stay locked in. There's a kind of person who doesn't ask you directly to be quiet, but you feel it anyway. Every time you try to express how you feel, they shift the conversation. They sigh, roll their eyes, or accuse you of being dramatic. They don't say, "Be silent." But they make it very clear your voice makes them uncomfortable. And over time, you start shrinking your words. You edit your emotions. You tell yourself it's not worth bringing up because every time you do, the response leaves you feeling more misunderstood than heard. This is how emotional silencing works. It's not always loud or obvious. It's subtle. It's wrapped in phrases like, "You're overreacting. Why are you bringing this up again?" Or, "Let it go already." And if you're someone who values peace, you'll start believing that your silence is the price you pay to keep things calm. But the truth is, peace built on your silence isn't real peace. It's quiet control. People who ask for your silence don't want resolution. They want comfort. They don't want growth. They want convenience. Your honesty disrupts their narrative. Your truth challenges their version of events. So instead of meeting you with openness, they meet you with resistance. And here's the danger: if you keep silencing yourself long enough, you begin to believe that your needs are too much, your feelings are too complicated, and your voice causes problems. But that's not the truth. That's the conditioning of being around someone who can't handle accountability. Healthy relationships don't ask you to be silent. They make space for your voice. They don't punish you for bringing up hard things. They respect you more for it. Because when someone genuinely cares, they want to understand your experience. Even if it's uncomfortable, they're not afraid of your emotions. They're interested in them. Not to fix or defend, but to connect. The people who ask for your silence will usually say they hate drama, but what they really hate is being confronted with anything that requires emotional responsibility. So they label your pain as drama. They turn your boundaries into attacks. And over time, you begin to carry the weight of their discomfort. You apologize for being too much. You tiptoe. You walk on eggshells. But deep down, you know that nothing about this feels healthy. You're not growing. You're surviving. You're not being seen. You're being edited. The moment you notice someone consistently shutting down your attempts to communicate, that's not a cue to try harder. That's a signal to step back and reassess what kind of connection you're in. You deserve a space where your voice doesn't feel like a threat, where your honesty doesn't cost you the relationship, where your peace isn't dependent on your silence. The more you honor your voice, the more clarity you'll have on who's really for you. Some people were never rejecting you. They were rejecting the discomfort of being seen. And that's not your burden to carry. Speak up even if your voice shakes. Because the moment you choose your truth over their comfort, you begin to reclaim your power. There's a pattern that hurts more than the mistake itself. It's when someone wrongs you, says they're sorry, but nothing ever changes. They want your forgiveness, but they never take responsibility. They want the clean slate without the cleanup. And if you're a kind-hearted person, someone who believes in second chances, you've probably been here more than once. You've been convinced that forgiving without accountability is somehow noble. That letting go means forgetting. But forgiveness without change is just permission for repeated harm. When someone asks for your forgiveness but refuses to own their actions, what they're really asking is for you to absorb the consequences of what they did. They want to move forward, but they don't want to go through the discomfort of self-reflection. They don't want to look at how they hurt you or why it happened. Instead, they want your emotional reset so they can feel better while leaving you with the weight of what was never resolved. These kinds of apologies often sound right on the surface. I'm sorry you feel that way. I didn't mean it like that. let's just move on. But pay attention to what's missing. There's no ownership, no curiosity about your pain, no conversation about how to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's a performance, not a repair. And if you accept it too quickly, you end up playing a part two, pretending you're okay while your trust quietly erodes. The truth is, forgiveness is not just a kind gesture. It's a bridge to healing, but only if both people are willing to meet in the middle. When one side keeps apologizing just to keep the peace, while the other keeps avoiding the hard work of change, the bridge collapses. You don't heal, you just cope, you just survive. There is nothing wrong with offering grace, but grace is not a free pass. It's not a substitute for accountability. It doesn't mean you excuse the harm, it means you release the hold it has on you. But that release doesn't mean you let them back in. That's where discernment comes in. You can forgive someone, but still recognize that their presence in your life is not safe, that your peace matters more than their comfort. People who truly value your forgiveness will show it, not just say it. They'll ask, "What do you need from me?" They'll check in, they'll reflect, they'll take steps to rebuild what they broke. And it won't be about proving themselves to you. It'll be about becoming someone who is worthy of your trust again. The next time someone says, "I'm sorry," listen carefully. Are they apologizing for how they made you feel, or are they owning what they did? Are they trying to make things right, or just trying to move on quickly? Your heart deserves to be met with effort, not just words. You can forgive without forgetting who showed you they won't do the work. And that's not being bitter, that's being wise. Your boundaries protect the healing that forgiveness begins. Without accountability, forgiveness becomes a revolving door of hurt. Close it. Lock it if you must, because healing is not about how quickly you can get over something. It's about how deeply you honor what you went through. There's a certain kind of discomfort that shows up when you start winning, not from you, but from the people around you. You share good news, and their smile is delayed. You talk about progress, and they quickly change the subject. They say things like, "Don't brag," or "You think you're better now?" It's subtle, but you feel it. The energy shifts. What should be celebrated suddenly feels like something you have to shrink. That's what it looks like when people ask you to downplay your wins, not because you're doing too much, but because your growth exposes where they haven't moved. The problem isn't that you're shining too brightly. It's that they've grown used to your light being dimmed. When you were struggling, they had a place. Maybe they liked being the one who had it together while you were figuring things out. Maybe your challenges made them feel needed. But now that you're evolving, succeeding, and stepping into more confidence, they're not sure where they fit anymore. And instead of doing their own growth, they ask you to shrink. They mask it as humility. They tell you not to get too full of yourself. But real humility is not about staying small. It's about staying grounded while embracing your greatness. People who are secure in themselves won't flinch when you rise. They'll clap. They'll support. They won't feel threatened by your success. They'll be inspired by it. Because they know your win doesn't mean their loss. When someone asks you to downplay your wins, it's not about your character. It's about their insecurity. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing you have to apologize for your progress. You'll dim your light to fit into a room you've outgrown. You'll start withholding good news. Stop celebrating out loud. And the tragedy is, you'll slowly disconnect from the joy that you've worked hard to earn. Your wins don't need permission to be celebrated. They don't need approval to be valid. You've fought battles that no one knows about. You've grown in silence. You've sacrificed in ways people will never understand. So when you start to win, even in small ways, own it. Honor it. Speak it out loud. Not to impress others, but to remind yourself of how far you've come. The right people will never ask you to shrink. They'll make room for your expansion. They'll celebrate the version of you that's showing up now, not just the one they were comfortable with before. And if your growth creates distance between you and certain people, let that distance happen. Growth is supposed to reveal who's really in alignment with you. Sometimes, the very people you thought would cheer you on are the ones who can't handle your elevation. That's not your fault. And it's not your job to fix it. You don't have to downplay what you've earned just to keep people close. If your success creates tension, it's because it exposed something that was already there, growing. Keep shining. And surround yourself with people who don't just tolerate your light, but reflect it right back. Some people don't just want a relationship with you. They want ownership of your time, energy, and presence. They blur boundaries not out of love, but out of need. At first, it looks like closeness, constant texts, frequent calls. Why didn't you answer? What are you doing? You used to reply faster. It seems like attention. But if you look closely, it's something else, entitlement. They believe they're owed unlimited access to you. And the moment you draw a line, they make you feel guilty for it. People who ask for constant availability rarely acknowledge the cost it takes on you. Your schedule, your rest, your peace of mind, it slowly becomes compromised in the name of keeping them satisfied. And if you try to create space, they interpret it as distance. They start labeling you as cold, selfish, or detached. But space isn't a threat. It's a need. And people who genuinely respect you understand that your time is not an endless resource they get to withdraw from at will. When someone expects you to be always on, always responsive, always present on their terms, what they're really saying is, I don't see your boundaries. I only see my needs. And over time, that expectation starts to wear you down. You begin feeling anxious when you miss a message. You over-explain when you're unavailable. You apologize for taking care of yourself because you've been conditioned to believe that saying, I need time, is a betrayal. But it's not. Taking space doesn't mean you care less. It means you care enough about yourself not to burn out in the process of being there for others. The truth is, no one, not even the people you love most, should have access to you 24/7. Uninterrupted access isn't intimacy, it's imbalance. And if a connection requires you to be constantly available to prove your worth, then it's not a connection. It's control wrapped in closeness. Healthy relationships honor individuality. They allow space for silence. They respect when you say, I need a moment, or I'll respond when I can. They don't rush you into interaction or guilt you into constant engagement. Instead, they trust the bond enough to give it room to breathe. Love doesn't demand constant proof. It flows with trust. The people who truly value you will never make you feel like rest is a betrayal. They won't question your silence. They won't take your boundaries personally. They'll understand that the version of you they love most is the one that's well rested, centered, and full, not the one that's constantly drained just trying to meet their demands. You don't owe anyone your constant presence. You owe yourself your balance. And anyone who makes you feel guilty for honoring that balance is revealing their dependency, not their love. Give yourself permission to be unavailable, to put your phone down, to not respond right away, to choose solitude without explanation, because your peace is not a public utility. It's a private, sacred space, and you get to decide who enters when and how often. There's a difference between being loyal and being tested. Loyalty, when real, is consistent, mutual, and steady. It's not something that needs to be proven over and over. It's something that's lived and felt. But some people turn loyalty into a test, a constant performance. No matter how much you show up, they want more. No matter how many times you choose them, it's not enough. You're always trying to prove yourself, and they're always shifting the finish line. That's not loyalty. It's emotional control disguised as connection. When someone asks you to prove your loyalty repeatedly, what they're really doing is keeping you in a place of emotional submission. It's a subtle way of saying, I don't trust you, without ever admitting their own fears or insecurities. Instead of doing the work to build trust, they place the burden on you to constantly earn it. That dynamic becomes exhausting. You're not building a relationship. You're managing someone's anxiety. You're constantly defending your intentions, constantly over-explaining, constantly sacrificing to be enough. And at some point, It stops feeling like love and starts feeling like pressure, like walking on a tightrope, hoping that one misstep doesn't get you accused of betrayal. This isn't just tiring, it's damaging. You start questioning yourself. You internalize the doubt. You lose your sense of freedom, and the relationship becomes a space of surveillance instead of support. People who require proof of loyalty again and again usually carry wounds they haven't healed. Maybe they've been betrayed in the past, or maybe they struggle with insecurity. That's valid. But their healing isn't your job to carry. It's not your responsibility to constantly reassure someone who refuses to do the work to feel secure within themselves. Relationships aren't meant to be built on interrogation. They're meant to be built on trust, empathy, and shared responsibility. You can be loyal and still set boundaries. You can love someone and still say, I'm not going to keep proving myself to you. Because at some point, if someone doesn't see your consistency, it's because they've chosen not to. No amount of proving will ever be enough for someone who's committed to being suspicious. You'll just keep jumping through hoops while they hold your worth hostage. Real loyalty doesn't need constant confirmation. It's recognized in your actions, your presence, your energy. It shows up in how you support someone, how you stand by them, not in dramatic gestures, but in steady consistency. And it's a two-way street. If someone demands loyalty but doesn't offer you emotional safety in return, that's not a relationship. It's a transaction rooted in fear. You deserve to be with people who trust you because they know you, who don't require you to constantly earn a place you've already proven you belong in. Your love shouldn't feel like a trial. You shouldn't have to convince someone of your heart every time they feel insecure. That's not love. That's emotional labor that keeps you small. If someone makes you feel like your loyalty is never enough, take a step back and ask yourself, is this a relationship or is this a contract I never agreed to? Because the moment you stop performing, the truth will always reveal itself. And the people who genuinely value, you will never put your loyalty on trial. They'll recognize it, honor it, and return it. One of the most subtle and painful ways people can try to control you is by asking you to be someone you're not. It usually doesn't start with outright demands. It starts with comments like, you'd be more attractive if you were quieter, or why can't you just be more like? They phrase it like advice, like they're just trying to help you improve. But the message underneath is loud and clear. Who you are isn't enough for them. They're not interested in seeing you fully. They're interested in molding you into a version that fits their comfort. Over time, if you keep hearing those messages, you start editing yourself. You water down your opinions. You dress differently. You second guess your natural energy. You become hyper aware of how you talk, how you laugh, how you exist. You begin to perform. And the worst part, you start losing sight of where the performance ends and where the real you begins. That kind of relationship doesn't grow love. It grows resentment and self-abandonment. When someone wants you to be someone you're not, it's never really about you. It's about their need for control. Maybe they're afraid of being challenged. Maybe your uniqueness highlights what they've buried in themselves. Maybe they only know how to love people who make themselves smaller. Whatever the reason, it's not your responsibility to morph into someone that makes them feel secure. You are not created to be a custom version of yourself to meet someone else's expectations. Love doesn't sound like you'd be better if. It sounds like, I love who you are, not who I want you to become. Real connection doesn't require performance. It requires presence. It allows you to be messy, bold, quiet, loud, soft, fierce, whatever your truth is in the moment. You don't have to hide pieces of yourself to be accepted by the right people. You don't have to trade your authenticity for approval. The more you try to be who someone else wants you to be, the more disconnected you become from your own identity. And what's worse is that even if you succeed in becoming their ideal version of you, it will never feel like enough, because deep down, you'll know it's not really you they love. It's the version you perform to keep them. Choosing to be yourself in a world that constantly tells you to shape, shift is one of the boldest acts of self-respect And yes, you might lose people when you stop pretending. But the people you lose when you choose yourself were never really there for you in the first place. They were there for the role you played. So stop shrinking. Stop molding. Stop apologizing for your edges, your voice, your energy. The right people will never ask you to be who you're not. They will never make your authenticity feel like a problem to solve. They'll meet you as you are and love you in the present, not some edited version they imagined. You don't owe anyone a performance. You owe yourself permission to be real. And that permission will attract the kind of people who don't just tolerate your truth. They celebrate it.